All right, members, let's come back to order. House will please come to order. We seem to be short of some members here. We have a quorum, but we're short of some members. Are there any announcements? Announcements as we wait for members to filter into the chamber. Any announcements? Chairman, if you wanted to make announcements for later, you're welcome to. No announcements. Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you. For all of the bills that we didn't get through on House appropriations today, we will take up 10 minutes on noon recess tomorrow.
Thank you. All right, members. We're going to continue with second reading, Senate File 66. Next amendment, number 10, Representative Yin.
Mr. Speaker, I move second reading amendment number 10 to Senate File number 66, and I ask for your favorable consideration. Members, you saw a different form of this during the budget discussion. Thankfully, the good member from Appropriations who spoke against this one helped me work on amendment for the ARPA bill, because his suggestion was that it could belong in the ARPA bill and that would be available. So as you see here, it is a $1 million appropriation for the Department of Health to help county and municipal law enforcement set up grant programs for mental health. So as we all know, our law enforcement sees all kinds of different things, and this helps incentivize them to get a program up, make sure it's sustainable, and then can go into the future without leaning on our budget at all. But this lets them spark that beginning for setting up mental health programs in their agencies. And I do ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you. First time. Representative Washut, first time.
Deja vu, I'm back again, but this time on the correct amendment. And I am encouraging you to support this amendment. We passed that $25,000, basically a planning grant to the Wyoming Peace Officer Standards and Training to conduct a planning session regarding public first responder suicides. And I think this allocation of funds is appropriate, and it makes sense to have some funds available so that after that planning conference is complete, that group has a source of funding to implement whatever plan they develop during that session. So please vote aye.
Any other members, first time? First time on the second reading amendment? First time, second time. Seeing Representative Yin.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I just wanted to mention that I did email back and forth with the Department of Health with the good member of Appropriations, and this is the language we worked up, and that lets them able to provide sideboards. Again, that makes sure that this is a sustainable program for those agencies moving forward. I ask you to vote aye. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. So members, we're voting on second reading amendment number 10, Senate File 66. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment is adopted. Next amendment, 11, Chairman Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would move second reading amendment number 11 to Senate File 66 and ask for your favorable consideration. Members, this is just a use of ARPA dollars to start down this. We got, I think, a great opportunity to increase providers around our state, and it's in this physician assistant piece. And you know, we train 20 doctors a year that go through the WWAMI program. And their first 2 years, all their schooling takes place right here across the hill at the university. Now, when that program first started, it wasn't like that, but it's been changed. And so we've ramped up all that, facilities, instructors and all that. And so the idea behind this then is to use this $1 million to take the next couple of years to start going through the accreditation process, the application process. There's just a kind of an administrative piece that has to happen first. And the idea is that we could take 5 of our own citizens each year and put them basically through, it's like having a master's degree. It's a 3-year program, 2 years of schooling, a year of rotations throughout the state. We can design all that and work on that, but the idea is that these students would rotate through every county in the state and then have those same payback provisions like we currently have with our WWAMI students and our WICHE students. I think a couple things. Currently, we have one physician assistant in this body on the other end down there. Used to sit down on this floor. He and every other physician assistant in this state have had to leave the state. They got to go somewhere else. And you look at the costs. I've been working on this issue for many years, and it's like the cost is about $75,000 per year. Okay. And then WICHE will reimburse like 25 of that. And our cost right now at the University of Wyoming for graduate education, full cost of attendance is about $25,000 a year. So, and then you look at the market, we've done all the market analysis. This is one of the most in need, fastest growing professions, and they pay well. I mean, these are $110,000 jobs in your community. And we have counties in this state that do not have a physician. And so I think, and we've updated our physician assistant laws, and it's just this whole, basically general practice that most of us need in our communities. And so that's the idea. Instead of sending our kids out of state to pay more money to grow somebody else's program, we've already got a lot of it here already. And then further, you can see this amendment says, we've learned a lot during this COVID. We can do a lot of this remotely from your own hometown or from our community colleges. And then maybe that one biology class where they got to go down here to this very nice biological laboratory, maybe that's a summer class, because these classes go year round. They don't get the summers off. These are year round. So that's what we're trying to do, is use $1 million of this one-time dollars for a one-time cost to get this thing going and get moving down this road to kind of grow the providers in our state. And we've done a great job with nurses, done a great job with other professions, but this is an area where it's a gaping hole, and I think we can make some progress. So thank you for your consideration, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Representative Western, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in support of this amendment and strongly encourage your consideration. Folks, if you go to your local hospital, every single one of them are hiring PAs, every single one, and they can't hire enough. The analogy I want to use is kind of what's going on in my hometown with our dental hygienist program at Sheridan College. Those kids, they're coming from South Dakota, Montana, Nebraska to Sheridan to be at our dental hygienist program. We have this bright young talent coming from the outside, recruiting them here to my hometown. This amendment is the exact same type of concept. This is a need that is really severe in all of our communities. We had an amendment that talked about workforce housing. Well, what about workforce development? This is a job that is so desperately needed in the healthcare field, in addition to nurses, nurse practitioners, et cetera. Here's an opportunity for us to capture the entire value chain in Wyoming and attract that intellectual capital that we so desperately need to have not only functional hospitals, but just to have great communities with these middle-class jobs. And so we spend a lot of money on things down here. It definitely has merit, but I think this is something that's going to yield intellectual dividends for our communities for generations to come. If we could just grow doctors on trees, we would, but the demand is so bad that when it comes to rural and frontier healthcare, NPs, RNs, nurse practitioners, et cetera, have to step up and play that role in delivering that healthcare to our rural communities. And this amendment is a big step in the right direction to assure that we have the healthcare professionals in our communities across Wyoming to meet our healthcare needs. So I strongly encourage your consideration.
Thank you. Representative Brown, first time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess just a couple of questions, if I can. When I look at this amendment, I'm a little confused, and just some clarification would probably be pretty helpful here. We're going to spend $1 million, and we're going to go to the university. So what kind of discussions have been had with the university about setting this program up? That's my first one, because to me, I think I heard earlier today, we have to have this spent by 2026. And so if we're going to have it spent by 2026, that's 4 years. I could see government getting rid of $1 million pretty quickly, but I do worry about what does that look like standing it up. You know, this is one-time use funding. This is going to be a continual appropriation once we stand this program up. I believe one of our favorite presidents said there's nothing as permanent as a temporary government solution. You know, so this is a good opportunity for us to put something into stone with one-time funding that's going to end up becoming a very large piece of funding from us in the future. And so I'd ask this body to consider that. This is a good idea right now, and everybody in here understands how hard it is to attract good, solid, working medical professionals into this state right now, especially in our rural healthcare settings. You know, we're not even considered rural by the federal government. We're considered frontier. It's tough. But I'd like to know what discussions have been had with the university, whether or not they support this, because this is putting a new burden on them. And we're standing up a new program with $1 million in a 2-year budget. Well, it's not a 2-year budget. This bill kind of opens it up. But I really think that that's my biggest key kicker here, is whether or not we want to start a brand new program and tie our hands to something. 5 PAs, I don't know that's $200,000. What kind of opportunity does that look like? How many staff do they have to hire for that $1 million? Those types of things. So if I can get some answers on that, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Any other members first time? First time on the amendment? First time on the amendment. Representative Duncan on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Quick question. Is there an accreditation timeframe on this, or are we already accredited? Because we already have the first half of this, or do we need to have a standpoint or extended period for the accreditation for the last part of this?
Any other members first time? First time on the amendment? Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a question to the bringer. It said something about it may be 5 participants from Wyoming, and it may be from participation from the community college if practical. If you could just give me some information on that, thank you.
Any other members first time? First time. Representative Heiner.
I know I'm short, Mr. Speaker, but sometimes if I raise my hand, you might see me. Members, the last couple of times I've went to the clinic, I was seen by a nurse practitioner rather than a doctor or a PA. So question to the bringer, could this be expanded to nurse practitioners as well for developing that program here? I've got a daughter that's graduated in May with an NP. She started out as a nurse, found out that doctors couldn't spend very much time with their patients, and so she decided she wanted to be a nurse practitioner, but she had to go to a university on the Gulf Coast to get that degree. So the question is, could we expand this to not only include PAs, but NPs as well? Thank you.
Any other members first time? Members first time? Members first time? Second time? Second time? Second time to the sponsor, Chairman Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll try to run down these questions. Kind of go in reverse order. On the nurse practitioner, we've had a program, I think 10 or 15 years, and it's really a great program, and it's been very successful. And that's kind of where we first started this. I mean, and those folks are practicing throughout the state. So that program is already part of the University Health Sciences Department, and it's doing good work. And our nursing program around the state to kind of feed that pipeline is in every community college. I think there was a question about in-state or out-of-state. I don't know if I heard it all, but the idea is to really just look at about 5 students in a cohort per year. That'd be year 1, 2, and 3. So if it was fully loaded, you'd have 15 Wyoming kids working through this program to then go out and practice. About 5 then per year would go out. Next question from Goshen County was, from the representative from Goshen County was, I believe, about the accreditation process and the timing. That's exactly what this appropriation is for, is to go through this. It's a pretty onerous process to go through this, and it's going to take probably 3 years to go through this accreditation process as I understand it. So that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to get this thing off the ground, and there's costs to it. There's fees and applications and that's what this appropriation's for. And then to the good representative from Laramie County, who asked about where does this end up? What's the final cost? What's it going to look like? And you'll see in the amendment, it says a cohorts of 5 per year, and then it says on line 11 of the amendment, the program shall work and align as closely as possible with the current medical education and training programs. So if you go to, I think I can say states now, we changed the rules. So our current PA in this 66th went to the University of Utah, sat right in the same room as a medical school student, sat in the same classes. So that, and then I think our neighbors in North Dakota was expressed to me do the exact same thing. Because you're taking mainly the same classes for 2 years. We've been told there's probably 2 additional courses that will have to be added for these PA students. That could probably be done with an existing professor or online. So I don't think we're going to be like hiring 5 more faculty or any of that kind of thing. This is a program that we hope we can have 5 more Wyoming students sitting in with our current medical education students, and they'll be out practicing quicker. It's a different degree, right? It's like a master's degree, not a doctorate degree. And so that's the idea behind it. So hopefully, I think we're going to get this done with minimal cost. And my good representative from Laramie County, I just don't see us. And then the cost of medical or of graduate programs, full cost of attendance, which is housing, food, books, everything, fees, is $25,000 a year at the University of Wyoming. It's one of the best deals in America. And so I think we're going to be able to do this. We're currently paying that in WICHE payments to send our students and our money out of state. And I hope that we can somehow get to the point where we can start growing this in our state. And so that's the intent and what we're trying to do with this. So I'd appreciate all the thoughtful questions, and I appreciate your aye vote. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, members. We're voting on second reading, amendment number 11, Senate File 66. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The amendment is adopted. Next amendment for your consideration is number 12, Representative Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move second reading amendment number 12 to Senate File 66. Members of the House, a few days ago, 52 of us voted to support House Bill 6, which was the appropriation of $95 million of ARPA funds and dedicating that to a program where cities and towns and water and sewer districts could apply and bring their best projects in, and it would be awarded to them. Unfortunately, the other chamber sent the bill to a committee that heard the bill and defeated it 3 votes to 2 votes. So what are we going to do about that? Fortunately, we have in this bill a mechanism where we can bring this activity back to life. So I draw your attention to page 5, lines 2 and 3. The footnote says that if House Bill 6 dies, then we just automatically throw 50 million, and that goes to SLIB, so for the OSLI to administer. And that's all good. At least we've got some money to distribute. However, the Select Water Committees invested a tremendous amount of time along with the Chief Executive's task force to come up with the boundaries that we should implement this program using the Water Development Commission as the lead agency. And all that is lost now. So the amendment that I've presented to you today actually picks up the most important parts of House Bill 6, and we slide it into a footnote here. You've probably had a chance to glance down through that now, and you won't see anything different or unusual there. It's just the same process. We're suggesting that 85% of this program would be in grant, 15% would be by the local agency. And we're bringing the cap back to $7.5 million would be the largest award for those projects. So you'll notice that there's no money in this amendment. We've strategically kept that out to discuss in the next amendment. This is just simply putting in the organization that the agencies prefer and want, and that's what we'd like to do, is set up an organization. OSLI is going to be so consumed with so much of this ARPA programs that we're discussing right now that it makes sense to share that around so that it can be more easily managed amongst the agencies. Mr. Speaker, that's all I have to share on the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. Any members first time? Amendment 12, first time. Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I please be on in favor of this amendment. All the work was done with the Water Committee, and we had a Senate file that came over, which was Senate File 82, which was basically a brand new list of items that were not approved by Select Water, and projects that really probably should be funded in the infrastructure bill. This is the water bill, and but we're using the ARPA dollars to save the money to essentially fund future water projects in the future. Thank you.
Any other member first time on the amendment? First time on the amendment. First time, seeing none. Members, second time. Members, we're voting on amendment number 12, Senate File 66. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment is adopted. Next amendment, 13, Representative Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move second reading amendment number 13 to SF 66. The most important thing you need to know about this request, we're taking the 50 million that's already in the bill and taking it back to the 95. The most important thing is that this 95 has already been profiled. It's already built in. The $53 million this morning that we had left that we've been consuming, that is not hurt by this. We have always planned on 95, that the financial department's budgeted for that from day one. So I'd like to share with you a quick piece of testimony that was given to us a couple days ago in the Senate committee. The association that the cities and towns belong to, their chief executive sent an email out inquiring of our towns and cities to find out what their really needs are. So of 99 towns and cities that we have in Wyoming, 43 responded quickly back in the email and listed their top 3 water and sewer projects that they need to have done. This association took only the top one, assuming that only one project for each community would be accepted. All the top ones of these 44 respondents totaled $142 million. $142 million of pent-up demands just by half of the towns. So if we double that, we're what? 280 million. And then we throw in the water and sewer districts, which I would submit would be around $70 million worth of needs. That's $350 million of water and sewer needs that are ready and need to be tackled. So I would submit to you a wise use of these ARPA funds is to go right directly. We're talking tens of thousands of people who will benefit by this, by putting pipes in the ground, fire hydrants on the corners, and meters in front of our homes. I'd submit to you that this is a wise use of money. So I encourage you to add the 45 back on top of the 50 to total the 95. We're not asking for anything more. And we realize we're going to have to go to a conference committee on it, but that's where we're going to stand. And so I encourage an aye vote on this amendment.
Thank you. Members, first time, Representative Nyman, first time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, I would encourage all an aye vote on this particular amendment. I don't stand up here and ask for money very much, as you probably will have noticed in the last couple of days, but this is very important. This is important to the growth of our state, our citizens' ability to be able to have clean drinking water and ability to get rid of their wastewater. Cities are growing. As I spoke before, we've got a lot of people moving into areas that need help in these infrastructure, and the Water Development Commission is geared and ready to go. They've got these loaded and they're ready to move on these. They're an extremely well equipped and handy bunch of people that do a phenomenal job of being very frugal with our dollars, I believe. And they'll do an excellent job of managing these funds in a very efficient and very conservative way that's going to benefit our entire state. So I would urge you an aye vote on this amendment.
Thank you. Any other members for the second time? Any other members second time? Members second time? And members first time? Sorry, first time, second time? Seeing none, members, we're voting on amendment number 13, Senate File 66. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment is adopted. Senate File 66, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill pass? No. Having been read 2 separate times, shall the bill be read a 3rd time? Hearing no objection, is so ordered. I was going to get this over a day early. I'm sorry, folks. So queue up your 13 amendments for tomorrow, and we'll see if we can do this again. Next Senate file for consideration is 67. Reading clerk.
Senate File 67, sponsored by Appropriations, State-Funded Capital Construction, an act relating to state-funded capital construction.
Well, we have amendments. Representative Bear, amendment number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move second reading amendment number 1 to Senate File 67 and ask for your favorable consideration. Ladies and gentlemen, as you recall, we were shared that there's $50 million being asked for the University of Wyoming for 3 projects. Thank you for your indulgence. The Law School, Carbonatorium, and the War Memorial West Stands. I just noticed that we were rather apprehensive about spending a great deal of money of the ARPA-D funds, and so I bring you an opportunity here to save some money. The fund that is being added to for this opportunity for construction, and these are funds that are matched, by the way, that fund currently has, to my best knowledge, $280 million available. So what we're doing is adding $50 million to that, and I just believe that this is an opportunity for us to not do that and allow the time to go by. They've got 5 years to come up with these matching funds. So I say we wait and not spend that money at this time. I think it's prudent. And with that, I ask for your favorable consideration.
All right, any members on 67, second reading, number 1? Representative Larson Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And when we get to the CapCon bill and we have this conversation over the years on what we're going to do for capital construction at the University of Wyoming, I know is always a tender subject. We were asked this year, as we looked at these ARPA dollars and reconsidered, there were several things that we have been dealing with in this body for 6 years on the natatorium and on the West Side stands and the law school. And with our colleagues on the other side, who we have always just kind of been a refining process, because they have often challenged us on being less on some things and more on other things, and This item, this $50 million this year, they come in, you'll note that we're up to $50 million to do these free projects. West Side Stands, that bottom section of the West Side Stands was built in the 50s. If you look at construction on buildings and you look for a 50-year life cycle and we've exceeded that, it's time to do some things. We look at the swimming pool, same issue. And at the end of the day, these are not going to go away. They are not going to go away, and we're going to have to address them at some time. And we felt that the opportunity we had now allowed us to get this with the caveat and the opportunity that the university said they could meet these with matching funds. Now, to the point of we don't need to do it now because we've got 4 or 5 years. We need to commit the funds in order to get the matching funds. And if for some reason it all went to heck in a handbasket, we could claw those back. But I'm very confident that we'll get this done, and I would encourage you to defeat this amendment. And this is kind of like the insurance thing one that we've been dealing with and passed on third reading, or will pass on third reading. There's just some of these things that we're able to get done this year and put behind us and move on. So I'd encourage your support and ask you to resist this amendment.
Thank you. Representative Kinner, first time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I've heard about these projects for some time, and so a couple of years ago, when we were preparing the CapCon bill that was quite honestly very similar to what we're seeing today, I took advantage of a tour over at the university. And I wanted to see these 3 projects. I wanted to see what they actually look like so I could make a judgment with my own eyes and thoughts about what this was needed. And I honestly was a little bit surprised at the deterioration of many of these projects in different ways. I was embarrassed by the bathrooms in the stands, under the west stands. I was really embarrassed by the condition of the press box that in a wind kind of waves away, and because of all the things that had been done over the years, the sheetrock had been taken down in places and hadn't been replaced, and it was just very much deteriorated. And then thinking about the pool, that we're a university that has a team that has to go to the high school to swim because we don't have a pool that's long enough to swim our meets. And so that really convinced me, ladies and gentlemen, that we really need to do these projects. And so then how do we do it? Well, we have an opportunity now where we have these funds that we can use for projects like these that have been hanging around for a long time and we haven't been able to do. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I suggest this is the time to take this step forward. And I would certainly urge you to support the bill and vote against this amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chairman Nicholas on the amendment.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. In favor of, against the amendment and in favor of the bill. So let's go back in time. We had a special session, and this body and the body down the hall passed out a budget, a capital construction budget that funded all 3 of these projects. So we've already approved this. The problem was that we said we were going to pay for it with CARES dollars, because we didn't know the language of the CARES Act when it came out. So the legislation said CARES Act will pay for this. But you will all remember, we went through all 3 of these projects. We described them to you. And I hate to go through and walk through them all again with you. But the concept is we've approved it. Now, 2 years ago, it passed out of this body, but it died on the other side. And so on a close vote, but it died on the other side. So this body has already approved all 3 of these projects twice on a floor vote. And if you can also remember on the special session, we also increased what we contributed to it because we were beginning to have that inflationary values. So for all, if you look at your Capcom bill, all of the community college entities, we added an extra 10% on top of it because we knew of the inflationary impacts. And so, the 50 million that we're talking about now takes into account that inflationary impact. I mean, before it was about 35 million, now it's 50 million. And so the estimated cost of finishing the law school now is roughly $30 million, which means that half of this will be funded by private dollars and direct dollars out of the reserves or some other place that the university has to come up with. So for the law school addition, we're saying you got to come up with 15 million, we'll give you 15 million. The other out of 35 million is funding a project that's going to cost 100 million. So we're requiring 2-to-1 match, literally, on the other projects, and that's the West Stands and the natatorium. The current cost of the natatorium is close to anywhere between $25 and $30 million to get it done, to get a brand new swimming pool. Ladies and gentlemen, when I was in UW, and that was a long time ago, in the 70s, I was swimming in that same swimming pool, and it was a lousy pool then. And it's just remarkable that we still have that same pool. And I don't know if you ever go there when the swimming team is working out. It's just crazy because they have to cycle in their swim team because only so many can fit in the swimming pool at a time. And also that means that other people can't swim there. The students can't because it's just so small. You don't even want to go in the locker rooms. I'm not kidding. It's worse than, well, it's worse than the public pool in Lander, and it's worse than the public pool in Cheyenne. So we need to do something. The West Stands. The West Stands are going to be paid for 2-to-1 by raising other dollars. And why in the world wouldn't we do that? I mean, this is the opportune time to do it. And the concept here is that we're using those general fund conserved dollars from ARPA, so general fund, but they're conserved dollars. It's never going to be an easier time to pay for this, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to have to happen sooner or later. So either we'll pay for it when we've got some conserved funds that are one-time dollars for these one-time projects, or we're going to have to dip into our pocket of our general fund and pay and not pay for other things in order to bring our UW up to speed. So I would respectfully submit that we need to follow our instincts, do what we did twice already, and get this project on the road. So the law school, they'll be able to break ground this spring. It's ready to go. And so it's just important that we get the ball rolling. Every year we delay this is going to cost another 5 or 10%. So instead of being a $120 million project, a year or two from now, if you look at the forecasted interest rates for the next year, they're forecasted on real estate, everything else to go up at least 7%. So we'll be back doing this again, but we won't have free dollars, the conserved dollars, to get this done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any members first time? First time. Representative Schwartz, first time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I didn't want to be the only member of the committee not to speak.
Thank you. Anyone else for their first? Oh. Representative Schwartz, please continue.
Thank you for that, Mr. Speaker. I deserved it. So I've been on this committee this is my 6th year. And for 5 years, I have resisted the West Stands. I've toured them, I've seen their condition and recognized that it was problematic. But in the previous years, I was concerned that we were taking valuable general fund money that could go to programs that were more important to me, programs in the department that provides help for youth, the department that provides medical assistance. But this year is a different year, and we have a one-time infusement of money for general fund. And at some point, we will have to do the West Stands, or they will be condemned. They will be unusable. And when I've been at that stadium and seen how valuable
the residents of Wyoming think the football team is. And I love the Go Pokes, right? I think this is a unique opportunity this year to take care of a project that has been on the list for a long time. So on and against the amendment.
Any other member first time? First time. Representative Brown, first time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I really encourage a no vote on this particular amendment. And anybody who's been in here with me during a budget season has seen it pretty much every year except this year, that I go after the $10 million with the University of Wyoming with their matching program for athletics. And I used to do it to kind of prove a point on what our priorities are, whether we wanted to put $10 million towards student athletes or whether we wanted to put it towards mental health or whatever that case is. But this is just a hair different than that. And this $50 million is funding 3 projects that our students and we will ultimately all use as well. Now, I'm guessing that a good portion of you don't get to come down and get to go to the football games as much as I do, but I spent quite a few Saturday afternoons over in the West Side stands this year. And I'll tell you, they need some work. They need some serious work. Our College of Law, it definitely needs some renovations. It needs to be cleaned up. And the one place that I'm glad that the chairman of this committee brought it up, but the natatorium is just, man. When I hear the stories about how bad they might be, and it might be even worse than the Lander Pool, I'm very shocked to hear those comments. But to be honest with you, I've never been to the Lander Pool. To me, what I can say is I've been to the natatorium, and I've seen them cycle through, and it is tough to watch that. This is student activities, and if we put it off here, we're just going to be putting it off, and next year it'll be 65 million. And then when we put that off at 65 and you say you can't do it again, it'll be 75 million. We're just kicking the can down the road. We have an investment in the University of Wyoming. And we need to continue to make that investment. This is the area where we take pride in our one university. Do I think the University of Wyoming is frugal and does everything with the best of fiscal responsibility? Nah, probably not. It's government. But you know what? It's our one university, and I take pride in it. So, go Pokes, vote no.
Any members first time? First time, first time. First time, second time, to the sponsor, Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate all of the comments from the Appropriations Committee. I'll remind you what I started this conversation out with was $280 million in the bank right now available for these matching funds. That's in the UW Academic Facilities Endowment Challenge Fund right now. So the funds are available to move forward with the construction, but many points were made by the Appropriations Committee, which I agree with. One was that this seems like free money. I think we need to be careful about thinking things are free, especially when our constituents back home are paying for it at the gas pump or at the grocery store. There is no such thing as free money, and this body needs to remember that. We also heard that the people of Wyoming love the Pokes. They do. And this is an opportunity for them to step up and contribute privately. That's one option. In fact, half of this money is supposed to be private money. Not everyone gets to go there. That was what the last speaker said. That's an accurate statement. So should everyone pay for it? That's what we do with a no vote here. Everyone pays for it. And lastly, I just remind the body that this year, the state will contribute $400 million to the University of Wyoming. $400 million. With this $50 million, it'll be $450 million. With the next amendment, if it's approved, it'll be higher than that. So please think about these things, and I hope you can consider an aye vote on the amendment and a no on the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, members. We are voting on second reading amendment number 1, Senate File 67. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment is not adopted. All those in favor of the amendment, please stand. All those opposed? Less than 17. The amendment is not adopted. More than 17. Next amendment, number 2, Representative Henderson. Please, Vice Chair Henderson, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I believe in our university. I believe in the people of Wyoming. I believe we have a good plan. And based on that, with all due respect, I withdraw second reading amendment to Senate File 67.
Thank you. Number 2 is withdrawn. We're on to number 3. Give Representative Baker a moment to get there. He probably wasn't anticipating that. He thought we'd have a 25-minute discussion on that. Which, by the way, members, just so we know, second reading on House Bill 66 was 2 hours. 2 hours. 13 amendments, 2 hours. We're at that order of business of second reading number 3, 67. Representative Baker, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would move second reading amendment number 3 to House or Senate File 67 and ask for your favorable consideration. So, members, if you take a look at the amendment, I think this is building on the discussion that we've had throughout the day and throughout this session. Again, what this would do is this is an opportunity for us to address an infrastructure deficiency within the state. So again, just to refresh your memories, the only paved route between Rock Springs and Green River is the interstate. You can take a state highway that parallels the interstate for 30 miles on either side of the two communities. You can take a parallel highway from Green River to Little America and from Rock Springs to the Point of Rocks. But the only thing in between the two communities that's paved is the interstate. So just to take a brief second, earlier this morning, I had them hand out a paper, and it had, yep, Representative Larson has it back there, Lloyd. It has, on the front of it, it has 2 different cards from 2 different people, but after I moved out of House District 48 and moved to House District 60, is really when this issue became apparent to me. Because when you live in Rock Springs, unless you work on one of the mines west of Green River or you work in Green River, you oftentimes don't find yourself traveling to the other community, except for maybe to register your vehicles, to float the river, attend maybe a special event. But since I moved from Rock Springs to Green River, I find myself actually relying on the community in Rock Springs. And I think that's the case for most people. And really, I think it's important to point out, I know I've been walking around the floor discussing a little bit about the medical issues and the healthcare issues, but in Green River, there's 12,000 people, which we've discussed hospitals and healthcare and physician assistants and all of those needs, but it's 12,000 people who all rely on a hospital in another community. Now, if you can tell me where that circumstance exists anywhere else in the state, I'd be happy to just have that conversation, because a lot of these other smaller communities, even though the closest hospital may only be 30, 40 miles away, they have their own hospital, they have their own emergency medical facilities. So I guess just to preempt that, if this were to fail, maybe in third reading, it'd be appropriate to come back and bring an amendment to build a healthcare facility in a community that's larger than the 9 smallest counties in the state. So I was asking, how many county-run facilities, how many county hospitals are there? You know, I think that there's under 20, but more than 15. I haven't quite nailed it down yet. But regardless, all 12,000 people in the community that I live in rely on the hospital in the other neighboring Rock Springs. So, and the reason why I point that out is this. In Transportation Committee, we just dealt with a bill that talked about radioactive material, and you're going to see that on the floor. There's currently only one transporter of radioactive material in our state. Generally, it's going from Idaho to Colorado, which means it's on that stretch of road. It's on that eastbound lane between the two communities. So during the interim, the director came to the communities and we had a little discussion, and I posed the question. I said, what if one of these radioactive material loads were to have an accident between the two communities? What would that do to the 12,000 people who are in Green River, relying on the hospital in Rock Springs? And the director, as many of you are aware, know his history. He's very qualified to speak on those issues. And if you want to talk about his response, we'll talk later. It wasn't good, okay? It wasn't good at all. So I can tell you that being a person who relies on this road and having it as the only route available, it's very stressful. And you'll see on the cards the testimony from the other people. Some people don't want to get on the interstate. And there's a good reason for that. Because if you speak with the colonel and he talks about, what can we do with our roads and what can we do? He says, there's education, enforcement, and engineering. So this part of this stretch of the road actually happens to be engineered uniquely in my mind. Not only are the tunnels just outside of it, which the tunnels are a national icon. People travel the road and they love those tunnels. Just a short little side note, when I was a kid, I lived in Rock Springs. It was a joke because my family, we would go to Utah and it would be a joke, okay, can Mark stay awake will he stay awake to the tunnels? So it's 8 miles, and once you get on the road, you fall asleep. Or another game we'd play is, and I know this happens a lot, kids in the tunnels hold their breath. Hold your breath during the tunnel. See if you can do it. It's like a joke. Every time you go through, you just hold your breath. So again, they're icons. And just going back to the engineering, I want to point out one more thing, and then I'll open it up for questions and discussion, is that portion of the interstate is unique in that there's only a couple of places on I-80 that actually completely separate, meaning the lanes, the eastbound lane and the westbound lane, there's no line of sight. So the ability to enforce is actually taken away because the troopers that are going in one way can't see the other lane. So think about it in your own mind. There's 3 spots that I can think of on I-80 where the lanes actually separate. This is actually the busiest road in the state. So I tell people as a personal testimony, when I was a kid and I used to test drive vehicles, I would test drive them from Rock Springs to Green River. Why? Because the lanes separate, and as soon as you see that there's no trooper behind you, you literally can go 100 miles an hour, and they can't do anything about it. So again, I think there's a real need here. We can talk a little bit more about, the sweep, the additional $400 million that could be swept into, savings if oil prices maintain. The reason, again, that I'm going after general fund dollars is just to build on the discussion that we've already had. And continuing on the conversation yesterday, there were a lot of times in the explanation of this bill and the other bills where, it was said, hey, this is normally in the budget, but it qualifies for, the ARPA direct or whatever. So again, on and in support of the amendment, and thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. Members, first time. Representative Stith, first time on the amendment.
Mr. Speaker, on and for the amendment. This road is a good use of $10 million of general fund because you're not only helping people get for emergency services from Green River to Rock Springs, but more importantly, you're ensuring that people going from Rock Springs can get to work at the Trona mines, for example, if I-80 is closed. So, and people keeping the Trona mines up and working, that generates revenue for the state. As far as the cost goes, when you look at our goldenrod, the LSRA balance projected to be $1.447 billion, but that's based upon $65 per barrel of oil. Right now, oil is trading closer to 100, and every dollars per barrel, every $10 is $100 million extra to the state, okay? $100 million extra to the state on an annual basis. So on a monthly basis, just while we're sitting here for 4 weeks talking, it's 25 million extra dollars that we have to go toward good projects to our general fund. So vote aye.
Thank you. Representative Simpson and then Schwartz. Representative Simpson, first time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Folks, this may surprise you, but as a civil engineer, I really love roads almost as much as I love water. The sponsor called me a few months ago to run this concept past me. And I mentioned to him, I said, I'm headed to Cheyenne in a couple days, and that's my route. So I'll pay particular attention between Green River and Rock Springs and look for an alternative route. And wouldn't you know it, I got halfway in between the two cities and there was a car accident in front of me and they stalled me up and I sat there in my car for 30 minutes. We need a bypass road on that section. Unfortunately, I'm going to suggest this amendment is not the right way to approach it for two reasons. One is this bypass road is not going to cost $10 million. And yet we're appropriating money for a road that has not been, we haven't even selected a route. We haven't been able to analyze the drainages, right-of-ways. We don't know anything about the cost of the construction. So it's really premature to be suggesting that we dedicate construction numbers until we get that preliminary engineering done. And of course, the bringer of the amendments suggests, well, how are we going to do that? And the question I would bring to the bringer of the amendment is, where is Sweetwater County in this process? I'm not sure that it's the state of Wyoming's responsibility to connect roads in inner cities between communities in a county environment. I would suggest the appropriate way is for the county commissioners in Sweetwater County to do the route study, cost estimates, and bring it to the Department of Transportation and let them determine and get it on their 5-year plans so that we can determine the appropriate way. There is means and methods to analyzing roads and bringing them into the 5-year plan. And so I encourage a no vote on the amendment.
Thank you. Representative Schwartz, first time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the previous speaker kind of hit on my question, because what my question to the bringer was going to be, where is this in the STIP? Because generally when there, in my experience, when there are road issues throughout the state, the department puts them in their long-term study and in some way plans the funding. So appreciate an answer on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Summers, first time.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. On support of the amendment, I think it's good seed money for the project. And make no mistake, this body puts money in the budget and has put money in budgets for roads for Wyoming that have never been on the STIP. So, or were not a priority on the STIP, and including, I think, maybe even in this budget.
Any other members, first time? Representative Larson Lloyd, first time on the amendment.
First for a second, please, Mr. Chairman.
Any other members, first time? First time? Chairman Nicholas, first time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, on and against the amendment. So in my tenure here, the only dollars that we set aside were, we used, and then what we really did is we put political pressure on the good folks at TRW, at Transportation, to look at and reevaluate their priorities. And then we put up matching dollars for bypasses on our way to Gillette and on our way between Casper and Shoshone for safety purposes. You know, there's no bypass road between Cheyenne and Laramie. So when that road's closed, you're stuck. I mean, Happy Jack only gets you about 2/3 of the way, but a lot of times you can't even get there, and there's no way to get to it. But the problem's understandable, but there are mechanisms to do this. And remember that our roads are 90% funded by federal dollars. And there's ways that we manipulate this so that we maximize federal dollars. So really, there ought to be a 9-to-1 matching in this with a component for the counties. And frankly, even some of the private industries contribute to it. So if we want to really get this done, there are ways to do it. So but I would respectfully submit that this is not the way.
Any other members? Chairman Harshman, first time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Briefly, just again, we have, I think the good majority floor leader expressed that we've done this multiple times in Campbell County, Lincoln County, Fremont County, where we've seen an issue. And we're not talking about a 50-mile bypass between here and Laramie. You know, and we do this in Casper. It's called Wyoming Boulevard. I remember when I was a kid when that was built. You know, here in this town that we're all in now during the session, you see all these bypass roads. You know, those are all provided as state benefits. You go in all of our little towns, the main street is generally a state highway. And so this is really, I think, an important issue. We got a chance to, we've got some money, we can get this done in kind of a one-time fashion, and stuff like this makes a big difference. And so I appreciate the bringer, and I encourage your aye vote. Thank you.
Members, first time, Chairman Burkhart, first time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So this is the busiest road in the state. It has a lot of truck traffic. Our Department of Transportation rebuilt part of this not long ago. I remember when they did it. They've looked at the cost of tearing down the tunnels and going around the tunnels, and it's quite a big number. I don't remember the exact number, but it's hundreds of millions of dollars and that. And I'll tell you, I sat in the canyon between Laramie and Cheyenne here not long ago for 5 hours, just due to weather conditions. And that there are a lot of roads in the state that need addressed. And that this is not a matter of the road condition, it's a matter of drivers. The road to me there are no problems with it. I've driven that road a lot. In fact, at one point in time, I was driving that road 3 days a week. It is the drivers more than it is the road. And that all it takes is a little bit of common sense to slow down in the winter. Maybe be a lot cheaper to post the interstate at 35 miles an hour. I don't know. But I don't think this is the way. Additionally, we're going to be looking at money coming in for infrastructure projects to the tune of about $100 million a year to our Department of Transportation. That we've put money, I think we looked at it in the budget the other day, matching funds. I think we let the process work its way out, let our department evaluate it through what's referred to as the STIP or State Traffic Improvement Plan, and go forward with that. I don't think taking general fund money like this and putting it to its right way. So on and against the amendment.
Thank you. Representative Fortner, first time on the amendment.
I believe from road repair to new roads, we ought to be looking at different ways of paying for them, and I believe that we ought to be doing toll roads. I think we ought to all pay for the roads that we're using. Thank you.
Any other member, first time on the amendment? First time, Representative Roscoe, first time on the amendment.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I was just wondering if we've heard the data for how often that section of road is closed. I might have missed that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any other members, first time on the amendment, first time on the amendment. First time, Representative Romero Martinez.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm in support of the amendment. Thank you.
Any other members? Any other members? First time, going to second time. Representative Larson, Lloyd.
Mr. Chairman, how did I do that, huh? Mr. Chairman, members of the body, I think I'm reflecting a little bit back on the conversation we had in joint appropriations, and I mentioned this earlier, where we had spent every last penny of ARPA, general funds. We had done it all, and kind of woke up in a spending hangover and said, "Whoa, this isn't good. We need to back off and bring some of these opportunities back to you and bring good ideas." And I've heard a lot of good ideas that I like, but sometimes where I get hung up, it's kind of like my my good colleague from the Valley of Stars that it's the procedure, it's the mechanism of getting us there that I probably struggle with more than the use of the funds. We talked about providing some gap funding this morning and using some ARPA dollars there that I said the program already existed. We talked about a few other things, and this is my hang up with this, and is I think there probably is some legitimacy to that section not having. I've thought about going down around towards the gorge and back around into Green just a little bit. The presenter of this amendment's right. For that section of road, that 15 miles, whatever that is there's not an alternative route. But I think the manner in getting this in the budget, in the CapCon bill, I think would be, I would have liked to seen this conversation fleshed out a little bit more in the Transportation Committee, as we have done, I think, when we brought some of these other road bills that we use general fund dollars for, and make sure that we really do understand what the amount that required is, look at the STIP, the 5-year plan that's pointed out. So as much as I think they need a road, I am not in favor of this amendment, and hope that we can support that effort moving forward to resolve this problem.
Thank you. Any other members? Second time. We're on second time to the sponsor, Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, body, for the indulgence. I just want to respond to a couple of things, and then let's get on with the vote and the rest of our day. So I do think there's never a better time. I do think that this is something that will benefit generations to come. I absolutely believe that this is a CapCon appropriate bill. If we step back to last year's discussion, I tried running this as an amendment in the budget, and they said, put it in the CapCon bill. So here we are, appropriate use. I absolutely did bring this as an interim topic for studying transportation. It wasn't accepted. I'll bring it again if this fails. I do think there's some legitimacy to it. As far as the STIP, I want to respond to that. Technically, this project is in the STIP because the wording in the STIP does provide for alternate routes in I-80. So I've been assured that if this project were funded, that it would be easily inserted into the STIP. So that's how the process works. It's already in there. It's an opportunity available for us. So as far as the county and where they're at currently, for a road to be built, it requires a NEPA, which is the environmental impact study. So the county is waiting on that. It'd be nice to say, hey, county, go build the road. But we can't really technically identify the total cost of the road until we have a route. And the route can't be plotted until there's a study. So we have to provide for the study. So obviously the $10 million, it wouldn't build the road, but what it would do is it would begin the process. And then again, being a realist, if this were to be added on, this would go down to the Senate and they would probably cut it in half or a third or something like that. So we'd be lucky if we walked away with a couple $1 million. But again, comparing it to other communities and other roads, Cheyenne, Laramie, they have their own hospitals. If the road's closed and people are stranded, they still have access to emergency medical facilities. So again, on and in support of the amendment. And let's start just with this is a good step, and this will benefit generations to come.
Thank you. Members, we are voting on second reading, amendment number 3, Senate File 67. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Chair is in doubt. All those in favor, please rise. One more stood up. Rodriguez Williams stood up. 26. All those opposed, this will be a close vote, so I'd like everybody to stand and stand still. And if you're inside the bar, if you don't want to be inside the bar, please remove yourself. So the amendment has not passed 26 to 29. 26-29. It has not been adopted. We have another amendment. Representative O'Hearn, number 4.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move second reading amendment number 4 to Senate File 67 and ask for your favorable consideration. I feel it's a quick, simple bill. Look at the bringers of this amendment. These are 4 veterans moving this amendment today to preserve the Wyoming Veterans Memorial Museum, because only 4 can be included on an amendment. But there are other veterans among us in this body. Representative Burt.
We don't name people by name,
4
please.
other representatives.
Thank you.
But there are other, to name a few, I'm sorry if I didn't name you. We all went to capture this one-time money to help in securing and restoring this historic facility for not just this generation, but for future generations as well. We all stood yesterday and sang the national anthem, and I must commend you all on how beautiful it sounded because I was up front. I ask you to stand again and help us to appropriate this small amount of money for those that gave some and for those that gave all. I ask for your favorable consideration. 2.5 and 2.5.
Thank you very much. Representative Newsom, first time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I've said before, we need to wait for the Office of Tourism to come up with a process to allocate these funds. I believe that the Veterans Memorial Museum is a great museum. I've been there. It's a worthwhile project, but I don't believe that the time is now when we don't have a process for the rest of us to get our pet projects in the queue. I think it's time that we step back, recognizing we have these funds, recognizing there needs to become a process to allocate these funds. Thank you.
Thank you. Other members, first time. Chairman Zwanitzer, first time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Against the amendment, and it's not that I'm not patriotic, and it's not that I don't appreciate veterans. You can take money from ARPA funds, from general fund, from LISRA funds. I just don't understand why in this amendment, in the CapCon bill, you're taking them from tourism funds. And if there's a third reading amendment, I'd certainly be happy to debate that. I just think it's, I don't think this is the correct way to go with taking money from the tourism account, which we've discussed 3 or 4 times, for all the reasons the former speaker just said. It's probably a good idea. If it's a good idea, take it out of every other CapCon funds, or even take it out of ARPA. But I don't know why the fight got brought back over tourism funds against veterans in this amendment.
Thank you. Chairman Greer on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If you vote no on this, you're not voting against veterans. You don't have to feel guilty about it. If you vote for it, it would be much appreciated. This facility is a little-known gem in the state. I had the opportunity, a sad opportunity actually, to visit it because a member of my community who grew up in Converse County had passed away, and the funeral was held there. It was the first time I got to see it. And it's kind of a rundown old hangar that has a tremendous amount of history with it, going back to the first man to break the sound barrier being stationed there. And so you walk into it, and I mean, I was just absolutely floored with what was in there. It truly is a historic gem. It is something, as we've built on sort of this military, I want to say, we've tourism, which is a real thing. We've got the wonderful facility out of Du Bois on the way up. We've got the Quebec site out of town here. This fits in with that very well, and really think a worthwhile item for us to consider as we're going through this CapCon bill. Not all projects, as we know, are ran through the Appropriations Committee. Some of us have ideas of our own. So I knew as this came forward, the issue would be taking the funds from the tourism dollars. I feel that is appropriate. Tourism Board, I think, She's probably heard our message, heard our debate, that they maybe need to start vetting their ideas through the committee has their oversight, much just like the agencies that are underneath my committee come in and we work them over, try to vet them, understand what programs are going on, what direction we're going, help guide them as the representatives of all our citizens. And if they get that set up in the future, I think that'd be wonderful. But in the meantime, just look at this project, give it some consideration. And again, it's something I think would be a good thing for us, be a good thing for our state, good thing for our veterans, obviously. But again, don't feel guilty if you vote against it. You're not voting against veterans. You're voting for America, though, if you do vote for it. So, thank you.
Members, first time, Representative Clausen, first time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a question for the bringer of the amendment. When this was in an above budget amendment, it was 7 million and now it's 2.5.
Any other members? First time, first time, first time, first time, second time, second time. Representative Newsom, second time.
Thank you. I would agree that this is a gem of a museum that we have and that it could use some upgrades. But it is not going to collapse and disappear in the next year. It will still be there when there's a vetting process to go through, and if the committee that oversees this office where the tourism dollars are could have a moment, have a little bit of time to just be fair and equal with all the projects that we have throughout the state and to vet those projects. I like the previous speaker wonder where the dollar amount came from. First it was 7, now it's 5. Is there a budget? Has there been any vetting, or does 5 million just seem like a good number? Thank you.
Thank you. Any of the members? Second time, second time, second time to the sponsor. Representative O'Hearn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, the planning board's been working on this for over 10 years, and we will come up with the additional monies as needed from private donations. There was only 4 bases built in Wyoming after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. This was stood up within 9 months with its own power generation facility and water and sewer. It was fully capable. It served over 16,000 soldiers and sailors and women, because WAC was there also. It's a historic building. We want to keep it running, and I ask for your favorable vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, we are voting on second reading, amendment number 4, Senate File 67. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. The amendment is, I have no idea. All those in favor, please stand. Thank you. All those opposed? This will be another close vote, depending on who's on the floor and who's not. $26.30. The amendment is not adopted. Senate File 67, having no more amendments on second reading, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, so ordered. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move the third reading consent list consisting of the following bills: Senate File 23, 24, 29, and 39.
Would any member like any of the bills removed from the consent list? Again, it is 23, 24, 29, 39. Any member like a bill removed from the consent list? Reading clerk, please read the consent list.
Senate File 23, sponsored by Labor, Nursing Home Administrators, an act relating to professions and occupations, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 24, sponsored by Labor, Pharmacist and Pharmacy Technician Practice, an act relating to professions and occupations, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 29, sponsored by Judiciary, Liability for Governmental Healthcare Providers Amendment, an act relating to the Wyoming Governmental Claims Act, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming. Senate File 39, sponsored by Appropriations, Firemen's Pension Plan Benefits, an act relating to firemen pensions, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Having been read 3 separate times, the question is, shall these bills pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Roll call on the consent list. Andrew. Baker. Banks. Bear. Blackburn excused. Brown. Burkhart. Burt. Clausen. Connolly.
Aye.
Crago. Duncan. Eklund. Air. Flitner. Flitner. Fortner. Gray. Greer. Hallinan. Haroldson. Harshman. Heiner. Henderson. Jennings. Kenner. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson Dan. LeBeau. McGuire. Nyman. Newsom. Nicholas. Oakley. Obermuller. O'Hearn. Olson. Ottman. Paxton. Provenza. Rodriguez Williams. Romero Martinez. Roscoe. Schwartz. Sherwood. Simpson. Summers. Stith. Stivar. Sweeney. Walters. Washit. Western. Wharf. Williams. Wilson. Winter. Yin. Zwanitzer. Mr. Speaker, we have 59 aye, 1 excused. As for Senate File 23, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote is closed. 59 aye, 1 excused. As for Senate File 24, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. Vote is closed. 59 aye, 1 excused. As for Senate File 29, are there any changes? Greer, aye to no. Yin, aye to no. Knapp, aye to no. Jennings, aye to no. Fortner, aye to no. Bear, aye to no. Winter, aye to no. Banks, aye to no. Stivar, aye to no. Wharf, aye to no. LeBeau, aye to no. Ottman, aye to no. Provenza, aye to no. Burt, aye to no. Sherwood, aye to no. Andrew, aye to no. Further changes? Connolly, aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. The vote is closed. 42 aye, 17 no, 1 excused. And as for House Bill 39, are there any changes? I mean Senate File 39, are there any changes? Are there any changes? Closing vote. The vote is closed. 59 aye, 1 excused.
Having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate File 23, 24, 29, and 39 have passed the House. Let's continue our order of business with the third reading, regular list. First bill, Senate File 22. I'm sorry, Senate File 2. Reading clerk.
Senate File 2, sponsored by Management Council. Legislative Budget, an act relating to appropriations for the legislature, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
We have an amendment. Representative Larson, Dan.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I move third reading amendment number 1 to House or Senate File number 2. I did get rid of some stuff out of this, so maybe, we will not be voting at your desk. Still has a $150,000 cost to it. And just want to say we already record our votes electronically up in the front. Our good chief clerk does that for us when we yell out our vote. And so that would just take her screen and put it on the bigger screens. Make it look a little bit better. So it's a pleasing. Also on the display, we would show bill information. And I think that's really important for the people and our citizens in the gallery. The bill information would probably include a rolling screen, kind of like you see downstairs when you're walking by stuff. Could show information about the bill we're currently debating, could show the amendment that we're on, could show the agenda for the day and the schedule for the day, especially when we have committee meetings, and other information that's vital to all of us. So I'd encourage, I think this is a way we need to go this way. Our gallery, the citizens up there would definitely appreciate it. So please vote aye.
Thank you, Representative Duncan. First time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On and for the amendment. This is not voting at your desk. This is to help us, basically, it would, the way I understand it, it would basically just help us in the room, help the people in the gallery and or online. You would have just the number of whatever bill we're on, or it would have the total vote at the end, maybe red for no, green for aye, and white for excuse. So it would just have a list of our names and whether we said aye or no. So this would just be a little bit more user-friendly for people, but it wouldn't be, we would still have our voice vote. We would still have our tradition. But what it's doing is it's helping the public and some of us here in the room. And it would be consistent with our YouTube webpage that is currently being streamed. I was told by some of our IT staff that we could also, with this, we could also have the vote total and such on the screen for the viewing public. So this is not breaking tradition, but it's just taking that little tiny step out of 1985 into 2022.
I'm not sure what everybody has against 1985. Representative Sweeney, you remember 1985. Please proceed.
I was. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I've just got a question to the bringer of the amendment. Is I believe this legislature is plenty transparent, but my question is, I think we continually put more pressure on our staff, our LSO staff, with every addition of everything that we expect out of them. And I'm wondering how much more IT time this is going to eat up for the back office that is already overloaded, plus how much more time and effort is it going to take from our good chief clerk? If you could answer that, that would help.
Thank you. Representative Washut, first time, and then Representative Knapp. Queue up if you'd like to speak to the amendment. Representative Washut, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
my sincere hope is that in a few weeks, this pandemic is going to be less and less of a concern. This video monitor will no longer be needed. Everyone will participate here on the floor. And that will be the last time we'll see televisions inside the room, except for some rare special occasions. I think I'm all in favor of transparency, and I hope every citizen in Wyoming knows exactly how I vote on every one of my votes, even though some of them make me squirm in my seat. But I think the beauty of this room, imagine the transformation. Look at the historic nature of this room. And then to start plugging in big display screens, you know, like a ball stadium or something, I think it's inappropriate. It doesn't work in this environment. So whatever you need to do to put my vote out there in front of the face of the people, I'm in favor of it as long as it preserves this room.
Thank you. Representative Knapp and then Representative Stiver. First times.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I'm a traditional guy, and I know this is only 150,000, but every single one of us is provided a laptop. There's no blocking for cell service into this chamber. So for the people in the gallery, and I would like to commend whoever was responsible for that website, but the website is very easy to navigate through. You can see every bill that we're working on. You can see every amendment that we're working on. And when a vote's taken, immediately you see the vote afterwards. So I think the public has plenty of access, and it's actually easier because it's easy to see right in front of them rather than staring down into the chamber. So I'm just a no on this amendment. Thank you.
Representative Stiver and then Representative Gray. First time, Representative Stiver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and against the amendment. You know, we just spent over $300 million remodeling the Capitol. We need to keep it historic. So on and against.
Representative Gray, first time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, wherever you fall on the amendment, we have a problem right now that we need to find a solution to. I think this amendment's one solution to it, but right now it's like watching a baseball game without seeing the batter actually swing. I mean, because people are watching and then there's the recorded vote and they can't hear what's going on. Yes, they can view it on the website, but a lot of people don't understand how to access that. And so we either got, you know, one option is to go back to the way it was in the previous building, where we had the chief clerk just like they do in the other chambers, say the aye or no afterwards, but it's just not, in terms of the public right now, it's not working where we're at in terms of viewing the body. So, you know, the other thing on the tradition thing, you know, there are a lot of people that didn't want laptops on the floor in the early 2000s. I wasn't here for that. I remember in 2017 and 2018 when there was an amendment to put cameras in here, and they said that was a tradition that was out of control, and it would have never happened if it weren't for the pandemic, and that kind of changed the thing, and it's gone to rave reviews. I haven't heard anybody talk about removing that. So just be careful on this argument. I mean, I'm a conservative guy. I'm all for tradition, but sometimes the context in viewing those things is important. So thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Zwanitzer, first time on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, on the amendment. And yes, we did spend $300 million to renovate this Capitol and other buildings in the Cup, but we did that to increase public participation, right? That was a drumbeat the entire time. Get more people at our meetings, increase public participation. We're not going back, right? We are live streaming all of our meetings all day long. I don't know how many people realize the first 2 weeks, every time you stood at a mic, you were being live streamed and 500 people on the internet were watching you. I don't think it hurts to have a little camera on to make sure we all know that every movement and gesture and everything we say is on the camera. I don't foresee after COVID that we're going to not do the, I don't want to use the proper name, but the live stream video feed anymore. I think that's probably here to stay. Whether or not we allow public participation from online in our meeting rooms, I think that viewing and that broadcast is probably here to stay. And so I mean, I think it's great to stare at that wall and look at the plugins in the wall. But in the old days, we used to put up artwork. I don't know if that's coming back, but I don't think it's problematic to be able to have a screen up there. I think all of those elementary kids who sit here for half an hour a day without really much to do, because we're not handing out the guidebooks anymore, they're bored to tears if they at least had a screen to watch. They might at least know what was going on with the bill number and what it does, the catch title. I think there's a lot of cool things we could do that don't have to ruin our tradition. And even the first couple speakers, there's all these kind of presupposed ideas of how this is going to work and what it's going to look like and will it be too flashy, right? We have our Legislative Tech Facilities Process Committee, and we've talked about these issues on this committee for 10 years, what it could look like. Management Council is certainly going to have some oversight if we were to do this, what it would look like, what we would stream. But I don't think it's too far of a stretch to put 2 video monitors in this chamber, cover up the outlets on the wall with something a little more decorative, and understand that, people nowadays, they want some entertainment. Our rodeo here in this community right now, or during every bull ride, we play loud, obnoxious music during every ride and have videos all the time, because the rodeo in this community said people are they expect a little more entertainment. I think that's some of the rise and the problems with politics is people want to be entertained and they want to see us fight some, but that same need to kind of view what's going on in the public process and then probably to be able to comment in real time online about everything we say. We probably don't want to post the little bluebird feed, right, about what people are saying about us. But I do think the world is changing quickly. People are demanding access. People who do come here in person are going to want to see and understand quickly what's going on, and having some type of video helps them. Same reason we're doing wayfinding in the basement, right? It helps the public understand the process, the history, what we're debating, and quickly get up to speed so when we talk, they know what the bill's about. And having a screen up there with the bill title, the catch title, I don't think it's a bad thing.
Representative Wharf, first time on the amendment.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I would urge an aye vote. I'm not going to waste a lot of time on this, but I do think it only makes sense. So I would urge an aye vote.
Chairman Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to vote no. And one of the things I want to say is, so I taught school for 8 years. So I'm a big believer in teaching people about the process. I have a PowerPoint that I have used when I go around to various groups and explain how the legislature works. But I think we have some problems with helping people understand the process that I don't actually think will be helped by just giving them more video to look at. Because if you don't know what you're looking at, sometimes it might be worse. I mean, if all you're looking at is interesting views of people wandering around and standing up and down, I mean, let me just example, two problems, for example, is the number of people I've told when they're trying to talk to me about a bill, I'll say, if you click on the PDF button, you can actually get a copy of the bill that has page numbers on it, which will make it a lot easier to know what's going on. They didn't realize that that was a thing. And just helping people understand what's in a bill and what it means. How many times have you talked to citizens or heard from people and they're upset about something that is actually the existing law and we're amending something in and they don't understand that? So I have to say, I really think until we find some way, and I'm not sure if there is a way, of helping people to actually understand what we're doing here, what the bill is that we're working on actually says, what the amendment means, I'm not sure it's really worth just having, pretty TV pictures that will perhaps not even convey to them what they think it does. So I'm going to vote no.
Representative Summers, first time on the amendment.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. On and against the amendment. Every bill is, immediately the public knows whether the bill fails or passes. And then within moments, it's on the website, all of our votes. And I just hate to see us go to, I don't like the screens now, but I think it's done out of necessity just because of the pandemic. And I certainly don't want to see screens placed in this chamber. I just think it I think it minimizes the quality and the tradition of this body. And I just hate to see us go down the path of electronifying everything.
Any other member, first time? Chairman Nicholas, first time.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. On and against the amendment. So I feel sorry for those folks right up there in that corner. Because you've got a big widescreen TV right in front of your face, and it blinks every time it changes the camera. And I can imagine that over there, and it's probably going to have to be a bigger screen and going to have to be higher for us to see. But I like the idea of a vote counting and have it on your laptop. For example, you know, when you're in the speaker's chair, you know if it's 28 to 29, you know if it's, but when you're counting, I mean, sometimes you lose track. And so when you have a chance to change your vote at the end, I think there'd be a real value for us to do that. But we don't have to spend $150,000 on a big screen. I would prefer it that these cameras come down so I don't have to be on that screen. So on and against.
Any other members, first time? First time. First time, first time, second time. Second time to the sponsor. Representative Larson, Dan.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. Visiting with our staff, our IT staff, they're excited about it. They've been thinking about this for 2 or 3 years. They can make it look good. Your picture isn't going to be up there on the wall while you're talking. They're going to have other information up there. They're going to have the bill information. They're going to have the amendments. This is coming. I think this is the time to do it. I don't think it adds anything to our chief clerk. She is recording our votes. They're electronic. It just takes those off of her display or whatever, and it's just going to show it up on the screen. It's a good thing. Vote aye.
All right, members, we are voting on third reading amendment number 1, Senate File 2. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. The amendment is not adopted. Division being called. I guess if we had a display, we wouldn't need a division, would we? All those in favor, please rise. All those opposed? More than 18. The amendment is not adopted. Senate File 2 having been read 3 separate times. The question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrew, Baker, Banks, Bear, Blackburn excused, Brown, Burkhart, Burt, Clausen, Connolly. Aye. Crago, Duncan, Eklund, Ayer, Flitner, Fortner, Gray, Greer, Hallinan, Haroldson, Harshman, Heiner, Henderson, Jennings, Kenner, Knapp, Larson Lloyd, Larson Dan, LeBeau, McGuire, Nyman, Newsom, Nicholas, Oakley, Obermuller, O'Hearn, Olson, Ottman, Paxton, Provenza, Rodriguez-Williams, Romero Martinez, Roscoe, Schwartz, Sherwood, Simpson, Summers, Stith, Stivar, Sweeney, Walters, Washit, Western, Worf, Williams, Wilson, Winter, Yin, Zawanitzer. Mr. Speaker. Closing vote. Are there any changes? Closing vote. The vote is closed. 53 aye, 6 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 2, having received the affirmative vote of the majority of the members elected to the House, Senate File 2 has passed the House. Next, Senate File 31.
Senate File 31, sponsored by Education. absenteeism, and truancy, an act relating to education, being enacted by the legislature of the state of Wyoming.
Senate File 31 have been read 3 separate times. The question is, shall the bill pass? Chief Clerk, please call the roll.
Andrew. Baker. Banks. Bear. Blackburn excused. Brown. Burkhart. Burt. Clausen. Connolly.
Aye.
Crago. Duncan. Eklund. Air. Fletner. Fortner. Gray. Greer. Hallinan. Haroldson. Harshman. Heiner. Henderson. Jennings. Kenner. Knapp. Larson Lloyd. Larson Dan. LeBeau. McGuire. Nyman. Newsom. Nicholas. Oakley. Obermuller. O'Hearn. Olson. Ottman. Paxton. Provenza. Rodriguez Williams. Romero Martinez. Roscoe. Schwartz. Sherwood. Simpson. Summers. Stith. Stivar. Sweeney. Walters. Washit. Western. Wharf. Williams. Wilson. Winter. Yin. Zwanitzer. Mr. Speaker. Closing vote. Are there any changes? Gray. Aye to no. Burt. Aye to no. Sweeney. Aye to no. Obermuller. Aye to no. Brown, would you confirm your vote? Okay. Sherwood. Aye to no. Further changes? Closing vote. The vote is closed. 31 aye, 28 no, 1 excused.
Senate File 31, having received 31 affirmative votes, the majority of the votes of the members elected to House, Senate File 31 has passed the House. We're going to do a little more, some housekeeping things to the front desk, and then the majority floor leader will have a motion for us. Standing committee reports.
Senate File 40, sponsored by Transportation. Criminal Record Dissemination, Military Department, an act relating to criminal procedure. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 40 engrossed, Criminal Record Dissemination, Military Department, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Crago, Larson Dan, Oakley, Olson, Provenza, Rodriguez Williams, Washit, Yin, Zwanitzer. Representative Olson, Chairman. Senate File 68, sponsored by Blockchain. Decentralized Autonomous Organizations Amendments, an act relating to corporations. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 77 engrossed, name change, duration of residency requirement. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Crago, Larson Dan, Oakley, Olson, Provenza, Rodriguez Williams, Washit, Yin, Zwanitzer. Representative Olson, Chairman. Senate File 77, sponsored by Senator Ellis. Name change, duration of residency requirement, an act relating to petitions for name changes. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 1, Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 68, Decentralized Autonomous Organizations Amendments. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Crago, Larson Dan, Oakley, Olson, Rodriguez Williams, Washit, Yin, Zwanitzer. Noes, Representative Provenza. Representative Olson, Chairman. Senate File 102, sponsored by Senator Hicks. Second Amendment Protection Act, an act relating to the regulation of firearms and the protection of constitutional rights. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 1 Judiciary, to whom is referred Senate File 102 engrossed, Second Amendment Protection Act, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Crago, Oakley, Olson, Rodriguez-Williams, Washit, Swanitzer. Noes, Representatives Larson Dan, Provenza, and Yin. Representative Olson, Chairman. Senate File 8, sponsored by Agriculture, Weed and Pest Reorganization, an act relating to weed and pest control provided. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom was referred Senate File 8, engrossed, Weed and Pest Reorganization, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Clausen, Eklund, Fortner, Heiner, Larson Dan, Worf, Winter, excused, Representatives Blackburn and Western. Representative Eklund, Chairman. Senate File 9, sponsored by Agriculture, Revenue Bonds for Agriculture Endeavors, an act relating to revenue bonds. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom was referred Senate File 9, engrossed, Revenue Bonds for Agriculture Endeavors. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Clausen, Eklund, Fortner, Heiner, Larson Dan, Worf, Winter. Noes, Representative Western. Excused, Representative Blackburn. Representative Eklund, Chairman. Senate File 7, sponsored by Travel, Wyoming Gaming Commission. Scriver Error Correction, an act relating to the Wyoming Gaming Commission. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom was referred Senate File 7, Wyoming Gaming Commission, Scrivener Error Correction. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Flitner, Haroldson, Jennings, Knapp, Newsom, Sweeney, Williams, Winter. Representative Flitner, Chairman. Senate File 53, sponsored by Senator Nethercott, Local Government Liability Pool Amendments, an act relating to local government insurance program. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 7, Corporations, Elections, and Political Subdivisions, to whom was referred Senate File 53, Local Government Liability Pool Amendments. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Clausen, Duncan, Ayer, LeBeau, McGuire, Roscoe, Swanitzer. Noes, Representative Burt. Representative Blackburn, excused. Representative Swanitzer, Chairman. Senate File 3, sponsored by Transportation, Radioactive Materials Transport Fee, an act relating to commercial vehicle fees. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom was referred Senate File 3, Radioactive Materials Transport Fee. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Baker, Brown, Burkhart, Henderson, McGuire, Obermueller, O'Hearn, Stivar. Noes, Representative Burt. Representative Burkhart, Chairman. Senate File 18, sponsored by Transportation, County Road Maintenance Fund Amendments, an act relating to highways. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom was referred Senate File 18, engrossed, County Road Maintenance Fund Amendments. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendment. Ayes, Representatives Baker, Brown, Burkhart, Burt, Henderson, McGuire, Obermueller, O'Hearn, Stivar. Representative Burkhart, Chairman. Senate File 85, sponsored by Senator Perkins, Child Care Facility Certification Exemption, an act relating to children. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 85, Child Care Facility Certification Exemption. Respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Flitner, Hallinan, LeBeau, Ottman, Romero Martinez, Stivar, Worf, Wilson. Excused, Representative Connolly. Representative Wilson, Chairman.
Messages from the Senate.
Message 185. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading in an amended form by the vote indicated. Senate File 51, Fairness in Women's Sports Act. Ayes 24, noes 5, excused 1. Message 186. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading in an amended form by the vote indicated. Senate File 70, Reviser's Bill. Ayes 29, excused 1. Message 187. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. Senate File 83, Prohibiting Chemical Abortions. Ayes 20, noes 9, excused 1. Sincerely, Ellen Thompson, Senate Chief Clerk.
Chairman Eklund, did you have a re-referral for us?
Mr. Speaker, yes, I do. I'd like to re-refer Senate File 8 to Appropriations.
Without objection, Senate File 8 is re-referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Senate File 8. We're at that order of business of Senate files on first reading. The first Senate file for consideration is Senate File 50.
Senate File 50, sponsored by Senator James.
First reading of the bill.
Government waste, fraud, abuse, and whistleblower protection.
Senate File 50 is referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Next, Senate File 56.
Senate File 56, sponsored by Blockchain.
First reading of the bill.
Lottery amendments.
Senate File 56 is referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Next, Senate File 97.
Senate File 97, sponsored by Senator Beitman.
First reading of the bill.
Change in party affiliation.
Senate File 97 is referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Next Senate file is 2. Senate Joint Resolution 2.
Senate Joint Resolution 2, sponsored by Senator Dockstader.
First reading of the bill.
Property tax exemption for elderly and infirm.
Senate Joint Resolution 2 is referred to Committee Number 3, Revenue. Next Senate File 62.
Senate File 62, sponsored by Senator Driscoll.
First reading of the bill.
Civics Transparency Act.
Senate File 62 is referred to Committee Number 4, Education. Next Senate File 103.
Senate File 103, sponsored by Senator McCone.
First reading of the bill.
Education Limitations on Teaching Critical Race History 2.
Senate File 103 is referred to Committee Number 4, Education. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you 5 bills that we'll start with on Committee of the Whole, and then I'll make the motion. So the start of the Committee of the Whole will be Senate File 45, and then 57, 58, 59, and then 35. And Mr. Speaker, I move that the House resolve itself into Committee of the Whole.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Mr. Majority Floor, would you like another motion to adjourn? Because they don't want to go to Committee of the Whole, apparently. Representative Washit.
Committee of the Whole come to order. Okay. Senate File 45, Chairman Burkhart. Reading clerk, read the bill.
Senate File 45, sponsored by Transportation. Military Department Annual Report, an act relating to Defense Forces and Affairs. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 45, Military Department Annual Report, respectful report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Baker, Brown, Burkhart, Burt, Henderson, McGuire, Obermueller, O'Hearn, Stivar. Representative Burkhart, Chairman.
You have heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Burkhart?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rise to report, it do so with a recommendation that Senate File 45 do pass. There are no standing committee amendments, and to explain the bill is the good representative from District 9.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Senate File 45 here. This is a fairly simple bill, to be honest with you. And what we're doing with this bill is putting into practice what should have been done a long, long time ago, and that is asking the state adjutant general or the commander of the military here within the state to compile any and all sexual assault claims, any type of sexual harassment, and discrimination issues that are brought forward within the department to be compiled in a report and reported back to us as a body. And the reason we're asking for this is because with them being military, they have their own internal processes where they can handle all this information, but at the same point, it doesn't necessarily have to be relayed back to us as an adjudicating body for what they're doing on a regular basis. And so we heard some testimony throughout the year that they want to provide this to us. And to be honest with you, regardless of whether or not we actually pass this bill, they are going to provide this bill to us. But what's interesting about this is we are ensuring that regardless of who is in command in our top post, we get this information. And we are provided this information on a regular basis every single year. So the critical elements of the bill are going to be on Section C, page 1, the October 31st date, allowing the Wyoming Military Department a full month to generate this. That's the end of their fiscal year, not necessarily the end of ours, but we would also receive that in time for our final meeting of the year with Joint Transportation Military Affairs to be able to draft any legislation that might be needed. And then on Section B and page 2, the privacy laws language is important to protect the victims. So we make sure that we are shielding any important information that these victims may be bringing forward, and we're not making sure that we don't have identifiable information. So with that, Mr. Chairman, it's a pretty simple bill. I do see the good country lawyer standing here ready to pounce, so I will stand back and take any questions.
Chairman Greer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to the shielding of information, so one of the parts of the reports are the factual information regarding allegations, reports, incidences. So I guess I just want to understand the conversation of how those things are typically kept confidential within an organization until such time as there is a resolution, because one, the information and the incident in and of itself may be very, very sensitive to both the person making the allegation and then in the same way to the same person to which is being accused. And so I'm just curious, what discussion was had to make sure that shielding, as it was referred to, is going to stay in place, because it can be devastating for both sides to be accused of something and then be found that you've done absolutely nothing wrong. But once the tweet goes out or the horse is out of the barn, it's almost too late. So just what discussion the committee have for those protections.
Representative Brown. Chairman Flitner.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just a question. How does this differ from House Bill 45, which also came from your committee that had a reporting requirement?
Chairman Zwanzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just any question on if there's any conversation about other state entities. I mean, I understand kind of the background of where we've been the past year, but if we're going to require one state entity to report these type of issues and the claims to an oversight committee of the legislature and the governor, was there conversation about having all, state agencies of Wyoming government if these issues occur, let's say in the Department of Corrections would be one that I think might have some issues, just based on the nature. Any conversation on not making this kind of a statewide for all agencies reporting?
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I'll try to take those questions in reverse order. I do think that that's something worth looking into, and definitely having a statewide, collaboration of information that's put together. But that was not necessarily in the purview within what we were tasked with Management Council to bring forward. And so, while I think it's a worthwhile and a decent venture to look into, I do think that this was very particular in the fact that we had some complaints that were brought up during the interim. And when those complaints were brought up, our committee looked into this as well and said, hey, we'd like a little bit more information on this. So definitely see the idea of going to some additional areas out there. I think Workforce Services bringing some information on that might be worthwhile as well. In regards to the question, and I'm glad I just got a sticky note asking me here it was the wrong number was used for how does this relate to, and she just put down here House Bill 53 and the sexual harassment and grievances. And the difference is that particular bill had a mechanism for the agency to actually have grievances settled and disputed outside of the military department. So that's what that one did, is it actually said, hey, look, we can actually go outside the military department to have these types of information or these types of grievances or sexual harassment claims adjudicated by another body. And that got it away from the potential of any type of interference or anything along those lines. So that's the difference in that. And then the last question in regards to the shielding, it's an interesting question, and it's probably one that I'm not going to answer perfectly enough for the good chairman of Minerals to be satisfied with it. But what we're looking for is anything that has happened over the past year. So anything that has occurred and I think maybe that might be a good second reading amendment to clean it up. Anything that's been finalized, because yeah, we do run the risk of having something that is currently happening and may actually have an impact on the outcome if it's reported on and it's identifiable in any way, shape, or form. So I believe he's referring to the information on page 2 where it says, factual information on all incidents and reports. I think that's only going to be available to what factual information is also available to the public and would be actually available to release. I don't imagine you would actually see, down and dirty secrets or anything along those lines that would be out of question for the public to have information on. And I don't believe it would have identifiable information on either party as well. So I also see the chairman of Transportation is up to answer a few questions as well.
Chairman Burkhart.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To answer the good chairman of Minerals question, these are all closed cases over the last year. So that's why it says factual. There's no names associated with them, and there's nothing that would be currently in progress. These are only cases that have in effect been closed and they have a resolution to them.
Chairman Zwanzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry to ask the really dumb question. What are you going to do with the information? So we're requiring the department to report to a legislative entity. Why? I mean, are we going to change statutes in a regard? Are we going to stop funding? That would go to a different committee. In my other life, right, we don't ask anybody to spend a lot of time doing reports and compilation of information unless there's a purpose that we need the information to cause an action. And I can't figure out what the action the Transportation Committee is going to do by getting this information.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's a great question. I also see the chairman of Minerals is ready to pounce again. But one of the things that's interesting about this report is this is a very similar report that is already required underneath federal law that goes back to the federal branch that does legislating as well. So this is really just a bill to make sure that we're aware of what's going on within our military department and make sure that we understand as a body what we are funding, as the good chairman just requested, that what we are funding, we know what's happening. There's a lot of stuff occurring on a regular basis, and this was brought to us as a potential opportunity for us to be a little bit more involved in some of the happenings of our military department. If we do see that there's a potential to bring this into a larger forum and have more agencies looking into this, certainly let's have that discussion. But this is something that has been an issue, not necessarily with our military department, but with the military in general. And I think it's a valuable asset for us to have this information on hand and be able to discuss these types of things with our adjutant general.
Chairman Greer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry to belabor the point, but these are sticky wickets here. And I appreciate the work that the committee had to do. But if the report's already going to the federal, to Department of Defense, why do we need it in the state? I also would say we're a small enough state, and I have to deal with this just in my organization, be very careful, because factual situations in Wyoming, right, you only get to connect 2 dots to figure out who that's about. And then the one thing I would caution the committee is, do you really want this report, and do you really want to sit in some capacity of overview so that you get brought into every one of these types of situations? That's more of a question I pose to the whole committee. Thank you.
Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Man, I heard this in committee earlier, what should have been a 10-second bill turned into an hour down there, and I kind of thought this would be a little more of a simple bill, to be honest with you, Mr. Chairman. And so I do agree with the chairman of Minerals here that this does kind of put a little bit of a spotlight on whether or not we have information, and do we really want to have all that information. I would submit to this committee you do. You're funding this. This is your military department, just like any other agency. We have a vested interest in what's occurring in our military department. The interesting thing about this is these are closed cases. This is information that the adjutant general and his staff has already said, we pretty much supplied this already. We have no problem relaying that same information onto you. This mimics very similarly the information that they send off to the Department of Defense. And I would submit to this body that we should be in charge, and we should be looking at what's occurring in our military department, especially if we have rising cases of sexual assault or sexual discrimination. Those are the types of things that this body should be very concerned about. And while I recognize and I admire the good chairman of Minerals statements that, yeah, it does only take 2 dots. Sometimes making those and putting those 2 things together it can be detrimental in some cases, but it can also be very, very helpful in others. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I'd ask for an aye vote.
Is there any other discussion on the bill? Are you ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Burkhart's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with a recommendation that Senate File 45 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Chair is in doubt. All those in favor, please stand. All those against, please rise. Two. Senate File 45 has passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 57.
Senate File 57, sponsored by Appropriations, Chancery Court Vacancy Amendments, an act relating to courts. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 2 Appropriations to whom's referred Senate File 57, Chancery Court Vacancy Amendments, respectful report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Kenner, Larson Lloyd, Nicholas, Schwartz, Simpson, Stith, Walters. Representative Nicholas, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Representative Stith?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you. I move in the committee whole rise and report. It does so with a recommendation that this bill do pass, and turn the explanation over to the good representative from the Southwest.
Representative Stith.
Mr. Chairman, members, this bill is very simple, and it actually saves us a little bit of money. What it does is the primary feature of this bill is that it pushes back the funding for the Chancery Court judge by a year. So whatever that cost would be, we end up saving. That's on page 2 of the bill, line 13. The date is changed from March 1, 2023 to fill the position to January 1, 2024. And you may wonder why it's not quite a year. Our high representatives from our judicial branch requested that it be January 1, because if this body were to fund it in 2023, it gives them time to actually vet and select a candidate and get it filled by January 1 of 2024. The other changes to this bill just provide some flexibility as to who can temporarily serve as a Chancery Court judge. Right now, the people who can serve are a panel of district judges selected by the Supreme Court, as well as retired judges, either Supreme Court justices or district court judges. This would allow the Supreme Court to appoint a magistrate or a special master. A small change giving the Supreme Court a little extra flexibility, which they requested. The panel that we had was composed of 3 judges for temporary Chancery Court judgeship, and one of those 3 was appointed to the Supreme Court, and so became unavailable, and that they wanted the flexibility. So, and I would stand for any questions.
Discussion on the bill. Representative Schwartz. Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Nicholas's recommendation that when Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with a recommendation that Senate File 57 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Senate File 57 has passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 58. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 58, sponsored by Appropriations. Wyoming Council for Women's Issues, Workforce Services. An act relating to the Wyoming Council for Women's Issues. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 2 Appropriations, to whom's referred Senate File 58. Wyoming Council for Women's Issues, Workforce Services. Respectful report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Kenner, Larson Lloyd, Nicholas, Schwartz, Simpson, Stith, Walters. Representative Nicholas, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What's your pleasure? Chairman Nicholas.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move in the committee whole rise and report. It does so with the recommendation that Senate File 58 do pass, and I'll turn the explanation over for the gentleman from Teton County.
Representative Schwartz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Senate File 58 is a very simple bill. I was afraid to say that because then we'll be here for a half hour. But it goes back to a conversation during supplemental budget where during conversations with the agency where this had resided, the Wyoming Women's Council, that it was actually more appropriate to have it reside in the department that manages work. And that was actually its historical home until about 20 years ago. They are administratively better organized to assist this council and the issues that the council deals with, most of which are workforce related, are better handled within that agency. So last year in the supplemental budget, we did all the necessary things to transfer the money from where it resided to the department related to work. I can say Department of Workforce Services. It's in the bill. Thank you. And And so we got it all set up last year in the supplemental budget. In the budget this year, we did the exception request to formalize it. And the only thing remaining to be done is what you will see in this bill, which is everywhere where the original entity, the Wyoming Business Council, is mentioned. It is replaced with the Department of Workforce Services, and everybody will be very happy if you all vote aye on this bill.
Any discussion on the bill? Seeing none. Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Nicholas's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 58 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 58 is passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 59. Reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 59, sponsored by Appropriations, Game and Fish Fund Investments, an act relating to public funds. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 2 Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 59, Game and Fish Fund Investments, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes. Representatives Kenner, Larson Lloyd, Nicholas, Schwartz, Simpson, Stith, Walters. Representative Nicholas, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Nicholas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move when the committee of the whole rise and report. It does so with the recommendation that Senate File 59 do pass. And I'll turn the explanation over to the good representative from Sheridan County.
Representative Kenner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, over the last couple of years, we've looked for efficiencies and we've looked for ways to improve the income statement, most recently on the expense side, but also we like to take a look at the revenue side too and see if there's any opportunities that we can find there or any opportunity costs that maybe we could improve upon, and what could some missed opportunities be. So on Senate File 59, we have done just that, and this is a bill that would help the Game and Fish Department become more efficient on the revenue side. And so what we're doing here is currently a lot of their funds are invested in the state agency pool, which has a certain rate. But what we're trying to give them permission to do now is to invest money in Pool A, which would have a higher return. And so we're just trying to give them the flexible authority to do that. And one thing that I might suggest that you do, if you have Senate File 59 handy, if you could flip it over to the fiscal note on the back. And there you can see what we're trying to accomplish with anticipated revenue. And of course, this really depends upon the amount that the commission chooses to invest. They would certainly make sure that they have enough funds in their operating accounts to handle all of their expenses. But those monies that they felt like they could invest a little bit longer term, this could be the possibilities. And you could see sizable amounts of monies, some $600,000 in year 23, close to $500,000 in year 24, and a little over $500,000 in year 25. So ladies and gentlemen, really what we're trying to do here is just give them the authority to do this. The Game and Fish Commission will still be the ones that would take care of that amount. And wouldn't it be nice to think about all the additional funds that we could hope good things for our game and our fishes? I'd be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Question being called. All those in favor of Representative or Chairman Nicholas's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 59 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 59 is passed Committee of the Whole. The next, Majority Floor Leader Summers.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So the next bill is going to be Senate File 35, and then we're going to go to Senate File 46, and then we're going to go to Senate File 6, and that'll probably be it.
So that order will be Senate File 35, Senate File 46, and Senate File 6. Our next bill for our consideration is Senate File 35. Reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 35, sponsored by Minerals. Electric Vehicle Charging Stations, Regulation Exemption, an act relating to public utilities. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 35, Electric Vehicle Charging Stations, Regulation Exemption. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Baker, Brown, Burkhart, Burt, Henderson, McGuire, Obermueller, O'Hearn, Stivar. Representative Burkhart, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Burkhart?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when a committee of the whole rise to report, it do so with recommendation that Senate File 35 do pass, and there are no standing committee amendments, and I turn the explanation over to the representative from District 41.
Representative Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill is needed to provide an update, provide some clarity in the statute 37-1-101. As you see the section 1 there, we're making some conforming amendments. And if you look at page 2 of the bill, the engrossed version, our colleagues at the other end made an amendment and then they reversed it. So the engrossed version is what the original bill was. And if you look down at line 14, this is the key part that we're updating here. And basically, we're trying to clarify that the sale of electricity for charging of electric vehicles by a person that is not otherwise regulated under this title. And this section pertains to exemptions. And that's the substance of this legislation. I'll take any questions. If there are no questions, I call for the question.
Seeing no discussion, question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Burkhart's recommendation that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 35 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 35 has passed committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 46. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 46, sponsored by Minerals. Solid Waste Cease and Transfer Program Funding, an act relating to the prioritization of municipal solid waste facilities, cease and transfer projects. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 9, Minerals, Business and Economic Development, to whom is referred Senate File 46, Solid Waste Cease and Transfer Program Funding. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Baer, Burkhart, Duncan, Ayer, Gray, Greer, Heiner, Sherwood, Western. Representative Greer, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Greer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 46 do pass. And for an explanation of the bill, I turn it over to the very distinguished and honorable gentleman from House District 19.
Representative Ayer.
Whoa, with that introduction, I got a lot to live up to. I do have the privilege, I think, of introducing the least controversial bill we'll hear this session. Just some real brief background. In 2013, the legislature created the Municipal Solid Waste Cease and Transfer Program. This program has enabled our local communities to handle their solid waste disposal and protect our groundwater. It's been very successful and benefited nearly every region of the state. Just real quickly on the bill, Section 1 on page 2 and the top of page 3 are definitions which have not changed. Beginning on line 6 is the updated priority list. There are 3 changes to this list. The City of Newcastle and the Town of Moorcroft have been updated to reflect engineering estimates, and the City of Rawlins have been changed from a closure to a transfer station. There are no other changes until we get to Section 2. Page 6, line 4 repeals the previous priority list, and Section 3 makes the bill effective immediately. With that, I'll either stand for questions or ask for the question.
Discussion on the bill. Are you ready for the question? Question having been called, all those in favor of Chairman Greer's recommendation. Yep. The question being called, all those in favor of Chairman Greer's motion that the Committee of the Whole rises to report, do so the recommendation. The Senate File 46 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 46 is passed Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 6. Reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 6, sponsored by Travel, Aquatic Invasive Species, Inspection Enforcement, an act relating to aquatic invasive species. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom was referred Senate File 6, engrossed, Aquatic Invasive and Species Inspection Enforcement, respectful report, same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Flitner, Haroldson, Jennings, Knapp, Newsom, Sweeney, Williams, Winter. Representative Flitner, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Flitner?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 6 do pass. I further move the Standing Committee amendment. And with an explanation of the bill and the amendment, I give you the representative from District 4.
Representative Haroldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So today we are going to talk about a bill having to do with stowaways, because that's the honest truth of what this is. So obviously we all know that we're dealing with the invasive species, the zebra mussels and quagga mussels, and we've always seen it as hulls of boats and water tanks, but last year, it would have been on March 5th, 2021, we found them in a different way that we never thought we would, and that was on mossballs in aquariums. And so that started a conversation in our committee in regards to this issue, and just in case you're not fully aware, Montana did an estimate of what it would cost if they were to enter into the waterways of Montana at $497 million of lost revenue. So just so you're aware, we can't allow these to get to our waterways. So as that conversation moved forward, we came up with this idea and the idea that is in front of us. And so I'm going to kind of walk through this bill, and then I'll bring in the amendment when the time comes. And so this bill is just addressing any person who is stopped and has not yet had his or her boat inspected at a check station. And so if you're stopped at a check station, you then have the opportunity, or if you're stopped without going to a check station, you have the opportunity to go and get your boat rechecked within 48 hours. So if you're basically get in trouble, they give you a 48-hour window to get your boat checked. If you choose not to, if you choose to continue to break the law, then we step into this next section, which is not just a fine, but kind of a little bit of a spin. So we already have fines in place for those that have not gotten inspected, but the spin that we have is that it's going to be a loss of use. And so for that, I'm going to bring the amendment in, and on the amendment is a correction after on line 9 after $5,000, and it states, so I'll just read it with that. Anyone who is found is may be punishable by a fine of not more than $5,000, and then it goes on and says, and may be prohibited from operating any watercraft on any of the waterways of the state for not more than 3 years. Any person who operates any watercraft while being prohibited from doing so under this subsection is guilty of a misdemeanor punishable as provided in subsection 23-6-202A and V. And then it goes and just basically talks about what that looks like. The reason we went this way is at the end of the day, we could continue to just throw fines down, but I don't believe that's probably going to get us anywhere. But if you can't use your boat on our waters, that's going to speak to you. And this isn't something where if you accidentally did something, this goes into effect. This is if you specifically choose not to get your boat checked, specifically choose not to listen to the warden that stops you, and specifically choose not to fix the issue, then you could lose your rights up to 3 years for operating your watercraft on Wyoming waterways. So with that, I stand for any questions.
Discussion on the amendment. Representative Clausen.
Just a question on the amendment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, or Chairman. Question on the amendment. Is there anywhere else in law we deprive people of using their property for 3 years for not getting it inspected for? This seems a little strange to me, but.
Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, or Chairman. I do not believe so, but at the end of the day, that's exactly what we wanted. We wanted it to be something different because we've had some people who have chosen to continue to go against. They don't see the importance of it. They still don't believe that the aquatic invasive species are bad, or maybe that they're not bad, but they're not concerned about them actually coming and being an issue. So this is kind of the direction that we went with it.
Chairman Eklund on the amendment.
Well, can I be off the amendment? It's a question on the bill, a part that I don't understand. We're given 48 out, they're given 48 hours of grace. What if in that 48 hours they use their boat in one of our lakes? They haven't gone through the inspection. Is there some, I'm not sure how this thing works.
Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what we were told by the entity that is overseeing this is that there are certain times where if you don't have 48 hours, you're not going to be able to find a check station that's open because the check stations are not open 24/7. And so this is just giving them ample time. They'll be asked not to operate their watercraft in the waters and be given that 48-hour window.
Representative Oakley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I guess one of the things I noticed, if you discuss this, that I like, it originally said shall be, prohibited from using the lake for 3 years, and now it's maybe. So then that gives discretion to the judge or to the courts to find the right balance for the appropriate, for the appropriate penalty for each case. So is that what you discussed?
Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And yes, that was what we discussed. We discussed that. And honestly, the original bringer of this wanted to impose a very substantial, like a $25,000 fine, and also have the ability for us to go back if we ever found aquatic invasive species in a body of water that they launched in. We could go back and up to 4 years and sue them for restitution. And so it's just where it started to where we're at. I think we've just kind of slid it down to where let's make it a situation where people are very, very aware that we're serious, but at the same time not make it a situation where we could ultimately ruin someone over a mistake or an issue.
No further discussion. Representative Provenza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to ask about the $5,000 possible fee. I'm wondering, and with it being a misdemeanor, I'm wondering if there was a specific reason for that or what other state statutes, because my understanding is that most of our misdemeanors fall under $1,000. Thank you.
Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And so with that, like I said, we started, the original draft was $25,000. And we slid it down to a $5,000 mark with the understanding that when we're talking $500 million worth of effect to our state if this were to get through, we want people to be very aware. They don't have to pay when they go into these. This is something that we as a state and our organization that oversees that, it's 100% paid for. It isn't even that long of a situation. Just come through the check station. Let's check your watercraft. And you have to realize that in the last year we've had, I think it was and I might be wrong in this, but I believe it was 43 watercraft that tested with invasive species on them. And so we're just seeing a higher increase. It's really vitally important that we take care of this, because if we don't, it isn't just our lakes, it's our power plants, it's everything we know as far as water is concerned, irrigation, all of that's affected. So we felt it needs to be something that gets their attention. And really, we just want to create a culture where they understand the importance of that check.
Chairman Flitner.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and the good representative's done a fine job to explain everything and answer your questions. Just so you know that during the interim, when we discussed this, we had some real punitive fines in play, and we just decided that was not the route we wanted to go. Typically, our residents adhere to our boating laws, and it's just non-residents who, in often cases, they don't understand. That's why they get so many chances to comply. But there is a statute pertaining to the authority of this agency. It's 234202. If you're so inclined, you may look it up.
You've heard the motion on the standing committee amendment. Are you ready for the question? Question having been called. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Standing committee amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Any further discussion? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Flitner's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, to do so with a recommendation that Senate File 6 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Senate File 6 is passed committee of the whole. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the House rise and report.
Reading clerk, read the committee of the whole report.
Mr. Speaker, your committee of the whole, having had under consideration bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. Senate File 45 do pass. Senate File 57 do pass. Senate File 58 do pass. Senate File 59 do pass. Senate File 35 do pass. Senate File 46 do pass. Senate File 6 do pass amended. Representative Washit, Chairman.
Chairman Washit.
I move adoption of the committee of the whole report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Congratulations. Well done, members. Well done. What do we got, Chief? Mr. Majority Floor Leader, that clears the desk.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we quit it a little early tonight, but we worked really late last night. So I thought that'd let everybody kind of catch up. And ladies and gentlemen, the committee of the whole list for tomorrow will be the following bills. Senate File 34, 75, 49, 9, 40, 68, 7, 3, 18, and 47, always subject to change. And Mr. Speaker, I move that the House adjourn until 10 a.m. tomorrow, the 3rd day of March, 2022.
Committee announcements. Committee announcements. I think we took care of a lot of them before we started. Chairman Eklund.
Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5 will do 2 bills in the morning starting at 8 o'clock. And they are Senate File 81 and Senate File 8, I believe. I'll check if that's different. I'll be back to the mic. I didn't grab my paper before I came up here.
Any other messages? All right. Representative McGuire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 8, Transportation, will meet tomorrow, 15 minutes upon adjournment for noon adjournment, to hear Senate File number 3, Radioactive Materials Transportation Fee, Senate File 18, County Road Maintenance Fund Amendments, Senate File 41, Expanding Next Generation 911, And Senate File 92, driver's license renewal or extension exceptions. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Chairman Eklund.
Yeah, correction on that. It will be Senate File 10 and Senate File 81.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Any other announcements? Well done today, members. One more reading on the Senate File 66 and 67. And we'll continue our work. So, members, you've heard the majority floor leaders. Representative Duncan, you have an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday we had a birthday and we didn't sing or celebrate. He's in the back room. He kind of, and so maybe we need to sing happy birthday.
Thank you, members. So you've heard the majority floor leaders' motions. All those in favor of adjourning until 10 a.m. We'll reconvene at 10 a.m. the third day of March. All those in favor, please say aye. Those opposed, no. We are adjourned.